again. Okay, I still see my Facebook circling, but David, let me know if this isn't coming through, and I'll try my phone. So it's been a couple of weeks since I've been on, or so, and there are a couple reasons for that, which I'll explain soon. But I want to start by just saying, quoting, or explaining something that is given over in a certain text that I learn and teach, Shar Yichud of the Middle Rebbe, Authentic Kabbalah Hasidus text. In one of the semi-infinite pieces of wisdom there is that when a teacher needs or wants to transmit something to a student that's too big or too subtle or too profound for the student's mind, because the student's mind presumably is more coarse and physical, materialized, linear. So he has to say something that will literally blow the student's mind. So in this little conversation, consider yourself the student and God the teacher. So why is that? Because when our minds are constructed in such a way, especially the left brain, that we are continuously trying to put everything that happens to us into an already known category, a container, a cubby, a box. And the good thing about that is it makes us feel sane. It gives us a sense that we're in control of our lives and that we kind of know what's happening around here. Because let's face it, it's a big complex world, and we're not given a lot of, not overtly given a lot of understanding and tools when we plop into it. So we like to feel in control as best we can anyway, which is the reason for a whole lot of behavior, some positive and many negative, but that's for another discussion. So what happens though is that whenever we have a filtering mechanism called the reticular activating system, which filters out between the subconscious experience, the subconscious mind is taking in information all the time, and the conscious mind. So only the things that have been predetermined or pre-programmed to be useful to the system are allowed in. There are a lot of different ways to say this, but the point is that when something new happens, most of the time, or when new information is available, or when God is trying to transmit something new to us, whether it's wisdom, or whether it's a new power, or whether it's a new possibility or a new reality, there's a lot of resistance, and a lot of the resistance is unconscious. It's not like certainly we often do just resist, but there's a lot in the programming and the inner wiring that caused that to happen by itself. So much of what's happening that feels so crazy, I titled this Facebook Live Bizzaro World, because things really are ultimately getting more and more bizarre. Like, just ask yourself this question. Have you, anytime in the last year, laid in bed, like trying to fall asleep and thinking to yourself, this is not any world that I ever in my wildest dreams imagined I would be living in? Like, what the heck is going on here? And what's gonna happen? And what am I supposed to do about it? And all of that. So the first thing I want to transmit to you, if possible, is it's for your good. It's for our good. Einstein said, among many other brilliant things, that the deepest decision, or the most important decision a person could make, was whether or not he or she lived in a friendly universe. So the core principle of authentic Kabbalah, of the Torah, of the universe, is that it really is Ein Od Milvado. There's nothing here but God. Tafkid Hatov Lehetiv. God is good, and the nature of that which is good is to do good. And the world is in existence because God is good. And it's a tough, tough transmission. It is. I'm feeling very emotional today. So let me just sidestep and let you know where I've been if you don't know already. It's been a month, an interesting month. I joined a new program like about 4.5 weeks ago with a lot of intention and excitement to get out in a much bigger way, which I'm still intending and excited to do. And then within a few days, a major family crisis came up with one of my kids, and affecting the whole family. It's still going on. And then that was starting to feel a little bit more manageable. And then last Wednesday, I was awakened by one of my kids. She did a really nice job waking me. It's very gentle, but I found out that my husband had been taken to the hospital with an event with his heart, and thank God, thank God, thank God, it's miraculous. I keep thinking of the miraculous pieces that indicate that he's totally fine and will be totally fine. He's not. It's not. It's a wake up call, but not. He's already got a pretty healthy lifestyle, but it's shaking us loose from certain things that we were stuck to, and that's a good thing. And I'm very grateful when the mind blowing happens in a way that you can respond to and immediately see a better future than the one that you would have had the mind-blowing event never happened. So thank you, God, for that. Thank you, Hashem. May all our wake-ups be gentle and kind and leading to immediate revealed good. So it's like, I'm always processing, and I'm sure that because I am out here, sharing, and that's my passion, and that's what I know I'm here to do. So I think that often things happen. I feel like sometimes for many years, I felt like I was somewhat in my experiencing of things that I'm somewhat ahead of the curve. Like I remember feeling dread about potential changes years before anybody else even noticed anything. And then, when people started to get anxious, I was already calm and laughing and whatever. So who knows, we're all on this train together, and we're just all in different cars, and maybe we move back and forth between the cars too. None of us is the driver or the conductor, but we all get to influence, the speed, the direction, the path, the smoothness of the ride. So the thing is that when something happens, the theme that I want to speak on is, I'm going to call it zel umazeh, which means basically one side corresponds to the other, like a polarity, the idea of a polarity. So why do we have a polarity? Why do we have a world of light and darkness and good and evil and success and failure and all of this that we experience? So in a nutshell, it is this dance between two poles that allows us to go deeper in. So our core polarity is we have in us a divine soul. We live inside of the divine reality, Ein Od Milvado. There's nothing here but the one divine consciousness that we call creator or God or source or whatever word you like. Universe is okay to accept it's conscious, it's intentional, it's creating everything that is. So that's one part of us that's represented in our personal being complex as the soul, especially at the deepest level, the core of the soul. And then there's the body, which is represented, which corresponds to, which is made of the core essence of this playing field. That's the world, the physical world. So our body's made of physical matter, of all the elements: water, fire, air, and earth. And our soul is made of divinity at its core and divine light in its different levels. The soul has many levels, and we're here to process. We're here to hold within our own beings an entire universe, and through this polarity of I'm physical, I'm beyond physical. The world is what I see. The world is nothing like what I see. My linear mind that enables me to get through the day by day and discern and make good decisions, hopefully, or at least learn from the bad ones. And then my intuitive, more soul-based mind that takes me to deeper places. Both of these are interplaying and intersecting in order to carry out the mission. So here's the next thing I want to say. We're in a world which is changing so, it's really, I don't even have words. But it's a bizarro world. It's a bizarro world, and it's just getting more bizarre. And the mind can't comprehend it. Okay, back to what I started by saying, that when God wants to transmit something that we are not big enough to encompass with our consciousness, so he's got to blow the mind. So we want to open our minds, but we also want to know that in this polarity, the mind being blown means it's open to something new. Where does that something new come from? Inside, from your own deeper consciousness. When your mind is blown, you want to sink in, sink in, sink in. I've been thinking about these words, sink in, for weeks now. So when something happens, we naturally, the left brain, physical, linear part of us wants to hang on. Like, don't. Let me get it back to normal. What's happening? No, no, no. And yet, resistance is not only futile, it's actually kind of toxic, because the more you, when you're meant to move, the more you hang on, the more jarring the motion is going to be, the more jarring the mind blowing is going to be. So we're here to move. It's a birth process. It feels, and I know that this is a mushal, this is an analogy that's given in authentic Kabbalah and Hasidus, the idea, and in other cultures too, I guess, the idea of the elephant going through the eye of a needle. How does an elephant go through the eye of a needle? It's got to change. It's got to change its nature. It's got to change the level of its elephantness to be much more spiritual. Because two spiritual things can be in the same place at the same time. Two physical things can't. I have to take a deep breath, because there's like a lot of pent up, not just emotion, but there's information that wants to come out. So I'm going to try not to make it too long. I'm going to try to keep it simple. Just give me a second. Okay, so the idea is, if you can learn to master the polarity, or even learn to flow with it, you're going to be not only a lot saner, and not only a lot more conscious, not only a lot deeper, and more of your soul will be available to you, a lot more connected, but things will be much smoother and more graceful and more fun. So when you get shocked by something, whether it's something you see in the news, or something you hear from a friend, or a thought that you have that triggers you, or an experience that challenges you, whatever it be, it may be, may all our challenges be loving and graceful and in our favor, in a revealed way. When that happens, you want to start to sink in and ask yourself, what is it? Like, what is this? What is this calling out of me? What is this trying to teach me? What is this trying to give to me? And the way I do it is, I close my eyes and go into a state of prayer, and just try to feel everything that's there, like a satellite dish. Sometimes I imagine myself in one of those healing sessions like a satellite dish, where I'm actually sensing inside, or listening, like deep listening to the inside of my being. What is this? Like, sometimes I feel it as swirling energies, or jagged pieces, or I'll have thoughts, or I'll ask a question like really quickly and see if I can hear a quick answer. Sometimes I say, core of my soul, what am I supposed to, and I'll get words, and they're not coming from my left brain in any case, that I can say where they're coming from. I don't know for sure, but it's a process of going into the deeper mind, because our mind, Hasidus says, authentic Kabbalah says that ask the question, does the world actually exist? And the answer is kind of. How does it exist? It exists, but not like a separate thing, because ein od milvado, there's nothing but source. There's nothing else. So what is the world? What are you? What am I? What is everything? It's a perspective. And what's the perspective? The perspective is of something less than the totality of all there is. And therefore, because it's not the totality of all there is, it's very, very limited. And because it's very limited, any perspective, all perspective, especially one human perspective, super limited. And because it's so limited, that means by definition, it's not the truth. It's just some kind of relationship with the truth. Could be a reflection of the truth, or some minuscule expression of the truth, or it could be a distortion of the truth, or it could be both. So the whole process that's happening now, which we call awakening, that is an opening, a progressive, successive, step by step, or crash by crash, or leap by leap, or opening, challenging of the perspective that we had a minute ago, or a day ago, or a week ago, or a year ago, which opens, which blows the mind, which I probably don't have to tell you is totally uncomfortable, because our perspective is what makes up, does the world exist? Do you exist? Yes, as a perspective. So when your perspective is broken or blown apart, even temporarily, it's very, very, can be very uncomfortable, very confronting. I can also tell you that every time I've gone with it ever in my life, it opens up new vistas and new horizons like you can't imagine. So I didn't bring this in, but I'm reading, somebody lent me a book by Dr. Joe Dispenza, which is, he's interesting. He's done a lot of research on the mind. If you're not familiar, you can feel free to check him out. Anyway, he gave a couple pictures of the brain. So imagine the brain, and inside the brain was a square, and he showed the neural connections within the square, which make up your identity. So inside the square, we have the customary ways we think, the information that we have programmed ourselves or been programmed to allow into our consciousness, which creates the same gene expressions, turns certain genes on, turns certain genes off, generates whatever health trajectory we're on, mentally, emotionally, physically. And then you have all the rest of the brain that's outside of that square, outside of the identity, that the connections aren't being made. So you have all this latent brain. You know, they say that we only use a small percentage of our mind. Where's the rest? We're just not connecting to it. So when something happens and it feels like it's a mind-blowing or a crash or a challenge, the idea is not to hold on, but to allow yourself to sink deeper in, to ask a question, or simply to listen. Why is that? Because now you're out of your square. You're out of your box. So where are you? In a deeper part of your brain. You're accessing your deeper mind. What is in your deeper mind? More soul, more truth, more consciousness, more connections, more awareness, more God, more miraculous power, all of it. So to do this, you have to have a kind of, I think, to be willing to do it, I think you have to have a kind of background belief, core belief that this is all, that the universe is in your favor, that it's a friendly universe. Thank God I have that. People who don't have that, I can't even imagine what they're experiencing. Like if you were watching, if you're waiting for these times, I was waiting for these times for a long time. I'm not the only one, but I can tell you that I never imagined what they were going to look like. Who could imagine it? It's outside of anything, you know, the past no longer equals the future. Like how many times did you hear growing up that the past equals the future, history repeats? Guess what? Not anymore. Not anymore. The only history that's sort of repeating, or the macro trend that we're living into now, is the Exodus trend. So we can learn from some of the things that happened during the Exodus, you know, the Exodus of the children of Israel from Egypt, which is the beginning of this long process of liberation from slavery within the constraining perspective of this world, and a liberation to a true relationship with who you really are and what this really is. In other words, source, soul, oneness. So I hope I'm being clear. Again, I'm so full of like all that's been being generated by everything that's been happening that I'm only going to be able to start the flow right now. But for now, let's leave it. Let's sum up and say that things happen in a polarity because we're meant to crash out of the box, uncomfortable, in order to access the deeper mind, a deeper truth, a deeper connection with God, more of the soul, more miraculous powers, more redemption. So the core principle is that, so I've talked about it before in previous lives, it's called Davar V'hipucho, that everything that exists, we see things, you know, we see one side of something at a time. You see the back of my hand, I see the front of my hand. Okay, now we reverse, right? But it's really only one hand. So everything that exists, the nature of everything in creation is that it is what it is, and it's what it's not. Everything exists in a state automatically of polarity. We only experience like it like a separate, like bouncing back and forth, because we're not yet able to see the whole thing in one glance. That's part of where we're going. So we want to get faster and faster at being able to move back and forth. But whenever you're challenged, whenever you're knocked off course, I invite you to to imagine this picture of the box inside your larger mind and expanding out of it and making new connections. One of the most powerful ways you do that is by going in, like I described, listening to what's happening, be inquiring. So you don't want to be too tied to the way that you have perceived yourself in the world, because that's going to be very uncomfortable as things keep moving. As we move from a solid world to a more and more fluid world, there's a lot of wind out there. But as we learn more about the true nature of reality, for example, that God is bringing, infinite divine consciousness is bringing the world and everything in it into existence at every single instant from absolute nothingness with divine, infinite divine desire, purpose, and intention. In other words, as I'm speaking, I'm blinking in and out of existence, and so are you, faster than the mind could possibly comprehend. And so everything that happens, by definition, has to be absolutely 100% intentional, because there is no such thing as cause and effect. There's only the illusion of cause and effect, which is part of what makes up the nature of our apparently solid reality. So here, we're here to see through the walls, and we do that through the polarity, through understanding the core principle. Where are we going? We're in a redemption process. We're in a birth process. It happens primarily, or how we align it with it primarily starts with our consciousness, with the mind, and then that automatically affects the emotions, and then the actions that are aligned with that. So I think I'm going to leave it here. Not because I don't have more to say, because I have too much more to say. Leave it here for today, and hopefully I'll be able to be back with you soon and won't have to have long breaks in the future, unless I go on vacation, which isn't happening this week. So, all right, take care, everybody. If you have any, feel free to comment, ask questions, like or dislike or whatever it is that I prefer if you like. But we're here to help each other, and that's what I guess I'm going to say that. Is there no sound? That would be annoying. David, is there no sound? Someone just typed that there's no sound. I'll find out soon. Okay, well, I'll just keep going in case there is sound. Anyway, the more that we compare our experience, the more that we're able to connect, the more we have access to the collective higher mind. And that's only going to help us in this process. So I guess I see another comment. I guess there is sound. All right, so I'm going to leave it at that for today, everybody, and take care. And I wish you, I don't want to be trite. I wish you an easy birth, a really, really, really easy birth. And I really do believe that the path that that's being laid in front of us now and now and now and now and now and now, at every instant, by design, divine desire and design, I believe that it's consciousness dependent, meaning there's a dialogue here. Remember, I started out by saying there's a transmission happening. So when the student or when the child is listening carefully and is able to receive, mind turned open, 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 to receive. So the more quickly we can receive, the more we can put things in their true context, and the more we can flow with that and act accordingly, the less shake up and wake up there has to be. So again, to an easy birth, and may we all process more and more skillfully, quickly, joyfully. Simcha Poretz Geder. Joy breaks all boundaries. And that's it for now. Mwah. Blessings from Jerusalem. Bye-bye.